cool sword, by the way. What's the sword?
It's a the sword. I actually got that in Tennessee. Uh, there's a place called Tennessee Knife Works, and I got that when I was like 9 or 10 years old. We were driving my
Wow.
sister out to college, and I really wanted to go by this knife work store because they had Lord of the Rings replicas.
Uh-huh.
And went in there and couldn't afford any of the Lord of the Rings replicas, but I could get Excalibur. So that's an Excalibur film replica. And so
Nice.
I've had that with me. Been in a lot of short films that I've done over the years and a lot of photo shoots and so it goes with me.
That's awesome. Well, become a family heirloom. Well, catch us
Yeah.
up. So it's been, what, a year and a half maybe since we last chatted, I'm guessing. And you had just, you were on the cusp of launching your epic radio drama. Catch us up a little bit on how that has been after about a year now. And yeah, what have you been up to since?
So it's been a lot about kind of holding on with the project 1232 audio epic. And we were working on finalizing, getting the last of the episodes, last of the season out. And then we were able to start submitting to a bunch of different awards and starting collaborating with others, collaborating with you guys, looking at trying to do new projects. We really wanted to be able to launch, a type of service, but we didn't want to commit to it all the way because we knew that life was going to get in the way, and also very specific projects would have to fit into the box that we needed. So since last year with the audio epics and the audio dramas, I've been able to continue to be a part of the conversation and of the community, learning a lot more on the tech side, um, getting to have conversations on what the trends are. And then 1232, an audio epic, was nominated for Best Audio Drama 2025 by Railmaker Awards. And so we went up for that
Congratulations.
and got to be amongst some real legends, people that have worked with Focus on the Family, people that have been in
Yeah.
the business
Wow.
and in the industry for a really long time. And
Hmm.
1232 got to stand right next to them. And that was a huge honor. So it's really been a lot about waiting on the Lord's timing, letting this project breathe and not jump into the next thing like I really wanted to. and then and then a lot of different life decisions. As the most frustrating thing about being a creative and an artist is trying to work yourself into that point where your art can sustain you. And
Hmm.
with my experience in the music industry, you can get to that to a certain point, but it does require a lot out of you. And sometimes a lot of your needs go unmet, if you will, or a lot of it's hard to put finances back in. Like you can usually get a project done, but your art has a hard time perpetuating itself. And everybody's individual in this. But I ended up having to make some personal decisions to get more involved in other things around my art rather than just depending on the actual creative art pieces itself, like depending on the audio drama itself to perpetuate the funding for the next one or for the next series or the next project. And so I had to kind of hunker down, my husband and I, here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and see what the Lord was going to bring. And he brought a music venue into
A
our
whole
lives.
new adventure. Yeah. So tell us
Whole new
about the music
adventure.
venue.
Yeah, sure. So the Wood Shop is a neighborhood music venue and bar, and they were doing music sometimes. It had been there for several years. It was an old grocery store back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, so a neighborhood store. And it's had a lot of different things throughout the years, but this neat old building has survived in this historic neighborhood called St. Elmo. And there's no other businesses around it. It's very pub-like. People walk up to it. The parking, it's street parking. It's very cozy, and we were able to take it over and start doing way more music, way more events. We were just talking to a bunch of different actors who want to start doing plays there. And we also have a nifty old bar and a little kitchen and restaurant, and then a garden outside. So it's very quaint, nice stage. We have played as musicians ourselves, have played multiple listening rooms, small venues and clubs like this all over the US and Europe. So to have the opportunity to be the owners of one, and we had a lot of experience with bar and restaurant management in our past, with playing on stages, with booking stages. And so honestly, it and including even the sound design with it, like sound treating it and soundproofing it and using it for recording a radio show there also. I don't know, just I don't know how God did all that. It was a series of small miracles that made it happen financially,
Yeah,
relationships, timing,
amazing.
deadlines, working with the city, and then now the incredible artists we're able to bring through, people from Japan, from the Netherlands, from all over the United States, people from, that we've known, musicians we've known for decades, or new people. And it's been going really well, and it's created a really incredible scene. And Chattanooga is growing so much. And so I'm not entirely sure how God is going to put the rest of this together. But from what I've experienced so far, pretty sure I can trust how he's going to bring the audio drama world and my authoring and my musicianship into the woodshop or into this space. Because I don't know, he kind of threw me for a loop, but you know, it worked out, and I'm very grateful and sometimes overwhelmed and a little tired.
I
But
can imagine.
for the most part, just like, all right, God, cool. Let's go. What are we doing? Let's stay busy. So
How do you
now,
go like yourself? How do you go from producing radio drama like almost full time and then being a musician to now having a finger in a bunch of different sides of this new pie, right? Or these cookie
right.
jars where you're serving the food and you're building a schedule and you're keeping you said you've got a radio show or you have somebody running a radio show off of the thing and you have international
Yeah.
talent coming in and I mean, it sounds like I could imagine you taking a year to get your feet under you and stop skidding around and make it work and make sense. And it sounds like you figure that out. What's that experience been like for you?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think how to even tell this linearly without, you know, getting distracted and blabbing about. I think that honestly, it just comes from all the very unique, strange side quests that God has put me on over the years. So,
Okay.
ranching family, hardworking, wanted to go to film school, couldn't really afford to go, the doors didn't really open, ended up deciding to, kind of work through my college years instead of going to college, still wanted to be a creative writer, screenwriter, do all these different things, fall into a entrepreneurial family that teaches me so much about business and management and how to read P&Ls and how to do so much of this back end stuff that I just didn't have the knowledge of, falling in love with their son, marrying him, quitting all of that, and going on the road to play rock and roll music. Okay. And then
Hmm.
doing that super grassroots, meeting filmmakers, musicians, wrecking vans, sleeping in Walmart parking lots to, getting paid thousands of dollars to play someone's personal home or traveling to Europe. I mean, I could go on and on with how many strange, weird things, all while I'm just trying to make a living from my art. I'm just trying to
Hmm.
survive. I'm trying to express myself. I'm trying to tell the stories that are important to me. I'm trying to get from, gas station to gas station and venue to venue and house to house, and then also being young and being married and working through that process and being challenged daily about what my beliefs are, what I find, is important when you're having late night conversations with somebody over, your 10th beer. Like, what does that look like? How is that helpful? What's being accomplished? What's being done? And going through all those different processes in my 20s and then getting here to in my mid 30s and seeing how I thought that a lot of those side quests were that side quests and just like weird random things that happen, like, okay, well, cool, like we got to travel, we got to tour, got to meet this person, awesome. Well, then the pandemic happens and all of the life that I knew ended because I just toured all the time, right? And that's when I got to get
Gotcha.
back into the writing. That's when I got to get back to writing 1232, the audio epic, and then my new novella and different things like that. And then because of all those experiences, because of all those people, the couches I slept on, the music venues I played, all these different things, those relationships with those individuals that God brought into my life, bore fruit is all I can, and even when I felt like I wasn't bearing any fruit at all, I was barely surviving, I was barely paying
Hmm.
bills, all this stuff. And God took all of that, all those little pieces, and especially the people, and have brought so many of them back in to be able to do the audio epic. And then thinking, I love doing this. This is the combination of so many of my skills that I have, the sound design, the writing the score, working with voice actors. I know so many. Like, okay, obviously this is what God wants me to do. Well, he definitely lets me do it, and it is a success. But did, and I don't think it's in vain at all, and I'll continue to do it, but it didn't, wasn't able to like start a studio, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like the opportunity to start a studio, to start producing these shows and being able to perpetuate that in a way that I could dedicate all my time to it financially, that didn't happen. I ended up kind of back to the paycheck to paycheck, doing a job that more or less thankless job, cleaning and being like, okay, Lord, well, I'm paycheck to paycheck again. My art and creativity is important to me, but I can't do it full time. It's not what I can do it full time up here, but you know, on a practical level, how am I gonna afford to pay
Hmm.
for a new audio drama? How do I even get this going? How do I start it? And then this adventure of looking at this venue, talking to the owners, and realizing, like, whoa, like I know so much about the practicality of running this business, still got to learn a whole lot, still in a new
Hmm.
market, still lots of scary things. And then the radio show is brought to me again, being able to do this. So my husband Jet has a blues radio program that we record every Tuesday live at the wood shop. So we do have a production team for that, which is amazing. But that is what
Do you do it
we
with a live
have.
audience, or is it privately recorded?
Live audience. We do edit
Music?
it down to an hour. Yep, live
Okay.
music, interviews. So we'll bring in
Wow.
new special guests. Like we had a gentleman from a harmonica player from Japan who came and was a featured guest for the blues night. And my husband he's had a bunch of his albums and a couple songs kind of chart on blues radio in the US and Europe. So there's been, that foundation. And he, of course, was my editor and huge help on my audio epic. We do everything together. There's not really like his project, my project. Maybe we're the leads
Uh,
in different ways, but we've always been able to creatively collaborate. So then, still producing a radio show. It's not an audio drama, although sometimes it can get a little dramatic, but it is still using those skills, using those connections to produce a show that we release weekly every Tuesday. And I co-produce it with Glenn Halverson of Sonic Hill Studios. He's the brilliant engineer that can capture the sound so well. And he also did some mastering for 1232 also. So once again, just like more of those connects coming together. And meanwhile, booking those artists and putting on shows and
and somehow in the middle
gosh,
of all of this, you ended up writing a novella. So I want to ask you about that in just a minute. But first, I do want to
sure.
ask how, okay, without pulling the God card,
Yeah,
how are you getting through like all of this up and down? Like there's something in you maybe that you're proud of or something that you're working on or a character trait or something. Yeah.
sure.
How are you getting through kind of all of the uncertainty and the up and the down and I don't know, maybe finding your peace, or maybe you're not finding your peace and it's glass of wine in the shower at 12 a.m. on a Thursday or something. But yeah, how are you making it work or keeping it together?
Well, there is a lot to that. There are definitely things in the way that I was made and created and the different trials I've been through. I don't know how or why, and I've definitely struggled with this and have to go through it a lot. But I was given a very specific measure of grit and courage that I've been able to foster this whole time. And my family is a huge influence in that. Very hopeful, very stubborn, very obstinate, and also brave. And so they don't do anything in half measures. And so I was not raised to do anything in half measures. I was also not raised to think that my life had anything to do with my comfort or ease or the whole thing of like, I don't know, this life isn't easy. It's going to be hard. You're going to get bucked off. You got to get right back on the horse. Like literally that
Hmm.
my upbringing has and being raised out in New Mexico in the desert, no rain, hauling water, busting ice, no electricity, to having electricity, to owning animals, to watching them die, to all just, I mean, falling off of trees. I mean, you just name the different things that I've been through in my young life
Hmm.
that really helped this foundation of not letting the world get you down and being like, yep, life is hard and it sucks and it hurts, but that is no excuse for not continuing and trying again. And the reason why I think that those particular things are so rooted in me, thank God they are, is because of my family's faith and because of what Christ meant to them. And because they took those things that he taught and applied them to their everyday life and in their raising me. Okay, church hurt or traumas or mistakes or judgments, sins, like, okay, we can pile on all the other stuff that makes a difference. But that foundation right there, my parents letting me fail, letting me succeed, excuse me, um, that makes a huge difference in how, as you grow up, how you can take on crazy insurmountable tasks. And yeah, I don't do it very well. And I did something the other day that was very foolish, and I was like, man, why did I do that? I am a grown woman. But that stuff still happens. And
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of tears. I struggle with a lot of depression, always have, even as a youth,
Really?
but had to find the redemption in that. And I think too, when you're somebody who struggles with that deep, dark depression that is so overwhelming, once you get through and past as best you can the suicidal thoughts of that
Mm.
or actions, you realize that you have to fight every day for that peace and that hope and that courage. And it is a real, real battle, spiritual, physical, emotional. And when you get to that point, you really can't let anything in the world bring you down. I
Hmm.
am not a Pollyanna and like everything's positive. I'm not bubbly, but I don't allow negative thoughts. I can't allow for negativity, and I can't allow for oh well, that didn't work, so I guess it's over,
Hmm.
because of the depression I've been through in my life and the different things that have happened to me and the people I've lost and the people I've gained. I have to fight, and I like fighting, and I have no problem with it. Now, can that be skewed the other way and you can fight for the wrong things, or you can fight when you don't have to and you can be at peace and you can relax? Yes. But I think the one thing is just grit, and it is absolutely rooted in my faith in Christ. You can't have one without the other because it is Christ that softens that fight and that grit with love and with compassion for other people and even myself.
Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about the battle for writing this novella. What inspired it, and what is it called? Do you have a copy? Can you wave it around?
Yes, yeah, I do have a copy. It should be handy. It's called She Had Glass Eyes. It's a Victorian Gothic thriller, and it's something very different and dark. We were just talking about hope and courage and lots of hoorah, and this one is different. It's not necessarily something that I would have seen myself writing. It started from a prompt, so never pass up on a good prompt that inspires you. And my mom was actually kind of ill, and I needed to go back and take care of her. And she's a cross between Snow White and Jessie from Toy Story. She's like this crazy
Really?
cowgirl yeah, she's this crazy cowgirl that's absolutely bubbly and has a million animal friends. She has a pet coon right now. And she has a strange, dark sense of humor. And she read to me when I was young all of like Edgar Allan Poe and a bunch of the Victorian Gothic short stories and thrillers. Nothing in the horror genre necessarily, but she taught me not to be afraid of the dark or darkness itself. And so that while she was ill, I wanted to write something that would make her feel better. And this prompt was, write a fictional story set in 1846 England around this, this town name doesn't exist. And it just has to, some kind of strange supernatural thing needs to happen.
Hmm.
So I don't know how I found the story because I thought once I Googled it that surely there were a million other books about this because it's an incredible thing. But I was like, all right, I want to write something about inventions, AI. When have we been having these conversations about the future and what's it going to look like? And so I was looking for inventions, and I
Hmm.
typed in what what inventions happened in 1846, and I came across one of the first simulated speech machines, called Euphonia, invented in 1846 by a German inventor called Dr. Joseph Bauer. And he premiered it at the Egyptian Hall to mixed reviews, let's say. Some people thought it was amazing, and other people said, this is it, this is the doom. This is how mankind gets wiped off. We won't need people anymore if someone can create a machine that can
Yeah.
simulate speech. And so I started doing that research. And so it's about the first simulated speech machine and a female undertaker that wants it for herself. So it's a spiral into madness. It's a conversation and a fun, slightly historical fictional tale about what obsession with the wrong thing can do to you. And it usually leads
Gosh.
to, some. So,
What's been the
yeah.
responses to it so far? I think it's coming out
I mean,
soon, right?
it
Or it's
is
already out there?
October 20th is when it officially releases, and it has been getting really great response, which I'm kind of shocked. I didn't think that I could pull off emulating some of my favorite authors of the era and capture. I really wanted it to be a snapshot and use a lot of the language and the metaphor and even the spelling of the Victorian times, but not so historical in its writing to where people couldn't follow along. And I'm really thankful for 20 Hills Publishing, who picked up the novella, who helped me foster just that. I feel like we struck a really nice, healthy balance to where we take you back to that Victorian time, but you're not just reading a extremely historically accurate novella that is full of language that you can't comprehend. And so I've getting great reviews from different thriller and horror authors, Christian and non-Christian alike. It is not a Christian book. It is an adult. Does not have any as violence. It doesn't have any sex scenes or anything like that, but it is definitely dark, and it is does not necessarily have hope in it at all, but it does shed
Well, it sounds like
light
it's more of a
on that
cautionary tale.
conversation. It is. I wanted it to be more fable-esque
Yeah.
than necessarily a straight down the middle, like this is good and this is evil.
Hmm. There's a need for you got tales of heroes who maybe know the right thing and see that through to the end, and then you also need stories of anti-heroes, and those are cautionary tales, and they don't end up well because they're not supposed to. Um,
Yep.
because there are lots of very serious things that you were supposed to stay away from or learn from, and so we need those in stories as well. Yeah,
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So yeah, She Had Glass Eyes, coming out October 20th. Victorian Gothic thriller. It's nice and short. It's a quick, quirky read that doesn't take, you know, sometimes it can be daunting to buy from a new author that you haven't heard of, if it's a thick book. And so this is nice and short, and it has been getting good reviews, and I'm very grateful for that. Mhm.
well, I think you plan on a is there a book launch you're hosting at Legend Haven?
There is, yes, and I am one of those people that needs to stop dragging my feet and go ahead and fill all of that out because I'm very excited to share it with you guys and the whole con because I feel so much camaraderie. I've had so many great conversations about light and dark, about not having to, about being a Christian and writing and expressing my art, but not necessarily always having to write Christian specific stories and art, and how and I feel like the con brings all of us into that conversation. I feel like it's one of
That's awesome.
one of the best conferences to where you can have these deep conversations about spirituality, questions, but then you can also just enjoy well-written fiction, well-written films, books, audio dramas, radio. I've gotten to have all those conversations over the past couple years. And so I'm really excited to share the novella with everyone and
That's
to
awesome.
host a little launch. And yeah.
Cool. Well, so Two questions. One, where can people find you? And second, I actually want to ask you for about a minute, why does this conversation, let's say in the fiction space, or as what you just said, I want to understand maybe a little bit why it matters so much to you, why you think it's needed for yourself, and not because I'm trying to talk more about the con. But first, where can people find you online and grab
Sure.
a copy of the book?
Well, I am a slightly socially awkward person. I'm a little aloof when it comes to social media. I'm not socially awkward in person, but online I kind of like duck in, duck out. So if you can catch me, it'll be on Instagram mostly, at Callie Sioux. You can find me Callie Sioux, 1232 Audio Epic. And you can also find me at audio-epic.com. That's where my audio drama stuff is, my novella information, and all of my socials are. So if you can find me when I pop in and out of those places, that's where it is. And I'm very easy to get a hold of. Email directly, follow along for the weird content I put out, or to see what other
And the
stories
book, they
I'm
can
involved
they can
in.
just Google that, or She Had Glass
They
Eyes on
can.
Amazon
She
or
Had
something.
Glass Eyes on Amazon, on Goodreads, on a lot of the main spots where you get your books from, digital or hard copy. And then any of the podcasts or audio dramas I do are available for free anywhere you get your podcasts, including Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That's all 1232 1232. And you can find that. And my name's usually associated with those things. So that's where to
Fantastic.
find me if you can. Or just come to the wood shop for a pint next time you're driving through Chattanooga on your way to Atlanta or Nashville.
Okay, so I've got to ask you, give us 30 seconds an overview. You said you had Bilbo's birthday party was a big deal over 2 days.
Yes,
What
yes,
was that?
yes.
How did that go?
Well, being a nerd, I just really wanted to be able to put on a show. I met some other musicians who were like, oh, well, we know how to play the soundtrack, different songs. And I said, we've got to put a show together. So thankfully, there are a lot more nerds in this area. And we did for Bilbo's birthday bash a 2-day show with a specialty menu, specialty concert, costume contest, redecorated our whole place to feel like a Hobbit hole. And it was an excellent time and a wonderful Lord of the Rings party, all ages. And we're going to be doing a lot more themed events around literary works, around music genres, and around probably some of your favorite different films, TVs, franchises, because it was a lot of fun and people responded really well. And it was nice to go all in, you know?
Hmm. That's awesome. Okay, so last question for you is, as you mentioned about there's a need for a new kind of conversation around how to not just create more Christianese. We can't argue that there's a need and a place for it. It's not
Oh,
what
yeah.
we are trying to do with our community. Why is that something that's important to you?
I think it comes from a lot of experience and also reality. So, being someone who did grow up in church in a lot of ways and around lots of different Christian spheres, from Catholic to Protestant and in between, and having those conversations, I definitely could tell when people were being genuine and when they weren't when I was young reading their fiction. And there were lots of Christianese artwork, music, books, and movies that didn't feel genuine. They felt like they were trying to tell a very specific message to a very specific kind of person. And if you don't agree, then you are part of the bad guys in the back with the leather jackets or something. And I, when I was growing up, there was a church we used to go to that had bikers and cowboys and hippies and businessmen and just a wide swath of real people who all had
Hmm.
one thing in common, their faith, and also that it was difficult to live that out in all the different spheres they were in. And
Right.
so that was the reality I saw, and that was the reality I wanted to see in fiction. And like you said, there's plenty of room and space, and it is important to write Christian fiction for Christians. Please don't get me wrong there. But there is something, as long as it's your intention will always be seen, is something that a artist mentor of mine told me. Your intention will always be seen. And what makes art stand on its own 2 feet is that authenticity and that genuineness. And so people can write genuine horror and genuine evil into their books because that's how they genuinely feel about the world or about a certain topic. And you can also write genuine good into it. And the intention behind that people will be able to feel, and especially young people, especially teens, especially middle grade. And I think that's the conversation to talk about, all right, we have the greats, the Lewises and the George McDonalds, and we have these. How do we be genuine like they were? How do we take what our stories mean to us and be serious enough to do the research, to put in the theological discussions in the way that is most genuine to ourselves? How do we look at the world around us, and whether it's in our world building as fantasy artists to include all the different cultures and people, or it's something, more urban fantasy, whatever it is, how do we write that genuinely? And we can get that from our real life experiences, from history, from other tales, from other things. I mean, Tolkien was very devout, but he took stuff from Norse mythology and he took stuff from Welsh mythology and different pagan traditions that he wove into his story because it was very real, in my opinion, very real experiences and interests and culture that existed. And so I think that what we need, in my opinion, the future of fantasy, of conversations, of conferences like this is not putting parameters around what makes what. But is it good? Is it professional? Is it thought out? Is it genuine? That should be the bar. Not that does it have enough, in music, there's the Jesus chord, like the JPMs is what it's called in like Christian music. Like how often do you say the name Jesus? And that's how many times, that qualifies it for Christian radio. Okay.
Mhm.
So like let's make sure as we build communities that are around educating authors and readers and creating a hub that we don't have these parameters of JPMs. I understand that maybe we don't want smut, maybe we have preferences on what we don't want in a sphere where we're trying to capture all ages. Cool. But if someone wants to write a dark tale about human trafficking or about war or about, orcs versus this or that, and there's that conversation around light and dark, as long as it is written well and authentically, it should be brought to the table rather than being very strict, even in a secular sense, that says, well, we don't want anything that talks about people praying. Well, people pray in their worst
Mhm.
situations, Christian or not, they absolutely do. And because they're looking, they're searching. And I think that that is what I'm passionate about. It has a lot to do with my experiences in various spheres, having conversations with people in bars, having a pint with them, and talking about Jesus and what they felt like was missing when talking to Christians. Like they didn't want to hear the jargon, they didn't want to be preached at, they want to just have a genuine conversation. People want a genuine experience and a genuine story that doesn't feel preachy on either end. Secular side, we don't want to be preached to about all the new ideologies, right? Christian side,
Mhm.
we don't want to be preached to about all the dogma. So I think that it's a tricky task. It's not an impossible one, but it's definitely not easy. But I'm very grateful for what you're doing and what the group around this con is doing, and many other pockets who are saying, how do we tell the absolute best stories in this authentic manner? I think that's the excellence we need to pursue.